There is another attempt to make it more difficult to mount a successful voter initiative campaign. The ability for Idaho voters to have a direct impact on state laws, some may say the truest form of democracy, not a republic. Well, this goes back more than 100 years in the Gem State. In 1912, the Idaho lawmakers and voters agreed to amend the state constitution to add a process for voter initiatives and referendums. It wasn't until 1933, however, that the mechanics of that process were put down on paper. 5 years later, the first voter initiative hit the ballots when voters created the Fish and Game Commission. Since then, there have been 30 initiatives brought before voters. Only 15 of them achieved the 50% plus one majority they needed to pass. That was a requirement established 89 years ago. Any measure referred to the people shall become a law when it is approved by a majority of the votes cast. The last to do so, that'd be the Medicaid expansion initiative 7 years ago. And sure, there have been tweaks to the laws since 1933, but the process has been pretty much the same over the decades. To get an initiative passed in Idaho, you need to collect signatures from 6% of registered voters in at least 18 of the 35 legislative districts. Now, that's just to get the measure on the ballot. Then you would need a majority of voters to approve it. But lately, on the heels of voters approving Medicaid expansion in 2018, lawmakers have tried to get a tighter grip on their exclusivity to make laws. Back in 2021, for example, they changed the signature collection requirement from 6% in 18 districts to 6% of voters in every district, all 35 across the state. But the state Supreme Court blocked that law, saying it violated voters' fundamental rights granted by the state constitution. Okay, so what if they just changed the Constitution? Well, they tried that in 2023, but Senate Joint Resolution 101 failed to get the two-thirds majority in the House. So that brings us to today. And this morning, Republican Representative Bruce Skog introduced a bill that would fundamentally change the voter initiative process, raising what it takes to pass by 10 percentage points. Here's Aspen Shumpert.
3 days into the 2025 legislative session, the first bill of the year is introduced.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, committee.
Right now, it takes a simple majority for a voter initiative to pass into law. But Representative Bruce Skog of Nampa believes they should require support from at least 60% of voters.
I'm trying to level the playing field a little bit.
An initiative is a measure brought forward by citizens rather than a lawmaker. If enough voters signed a petition, the initiative is put on the ballot. Skog says that makes it too easy to pass rules that haven't been properly vetted.
They're going to have to work a lot harder because we don't get to have full hearings on the issue in these. It's pure democracy, which I'll talk about in the bill here in a minute. We don't like pure democracy. That has failed throughout history. We like a republic form of government, and that's what we have.
The representative hopes the bill would also prevent out-of-state investors from getting involved in what is intended to be an Idaho voter-driven process.
We've lost citizens' initiatives. They're no longer citizens' initiatives. We have millions of dollars pouring into our state to pay people to sign the initiatives. So really it's big corporations or big political interests that bring this on to us, and I don't like that.
Democrats on the House State Affairs Committee reminded Skog about previous changes to the initiative process have been challenged by the state's highest court.
We are pushing forward, and a change the initiative process when the Idaho Supreme Court has ruled unambiguously that the initiative process is a fundamental right for Idaho voters.
That ruling doesn't worry Skog. He says he will continue to push this forward, using the ranked choice voting issue on November's ballot as an example of why what we have now isn't working.
People saw in Prop 1 the battles we had across the state, the millions of dollars that were spent, and there was still no real public dialogue or place we could have public hearings about the truth of the matter. So I'm hoping this will slow that down or at least level the playing field so that the voters have to be at a higher threshold on these difficult initiatives.
The Democrat Representative Achilles also pointed out that under Skog's proposed 60% threshold, several initiatives like sales tax relief, property tax relief, and the homeowners exemption would not have had enough support to pass. The House of Affairs did vote to unanimously pass this, so it will be getting a hearing soon.
We'll be getting it printed and we'll get a hearing. So my question is, now the Prop 1, that kind of worked out in their favor, those
Right,
that were
it
against it.
didn't
It didn't
pass. Right.
Despite all this money they claim coming in from out of state. And if that's the problem, I guess my question is, why not just change that part of the process, the money coming in from out of state?
And that's a good question. Might be one that comes up in the hearing when we hear a little bit more debate and opinions on the verbiage.
Okay, so it's being printed, as we mentioned, so we'll
Yep.
wait and see when it gets actually introduced starting out in the House State Affairs Committee. All
That's right.
Thank you very much, Aspen.